Okay, it looks like I'm very, very much alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. Good evening, everyone. I'm about ready to go to work in a little bit, but I figured um, when things are on my mind, I want to share it with you all, and that's what prompts me to go and do this. Do the commentaries I like to do and everything. Um, just in case you didn't know, in my your last video, I'm still enduring my shoe on head plushie. So she's listening. Hey, I appreciate this. This really made my day. Display it nice and prominent. I had it over here. There we go. All right. Anyway, let me get started. We have an election in the next couple of weeks, as if you all didn't know. But let's go back to the year 2016, which seems like it was 100 years ago, even though it seems like yesterday. Uh, well, um, remember when Donald Trump declared his candidacy in the Republican primaries, and there were like 20 Republican candidates running. Just watching that primary and just watching the people, all the garden variety Republicans, every kind of movement conservative you can imagine was out there. The kind of people that would make Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity's heart glow. And I'm talking about the names like Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, Carly Farina, Tommy Thompson, I believe that's his name, Rick Santorum. What's the other? What's the name? Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, Bobby Jindal, um, Ben Carson, Lindsey Graham, George Pataki, all of these people. Well, okay, George Pataki actually might be the best out of all of them. Um, I won't say Rand Paul because Rand Paul is not your conventional Republican. Although there are things I don't like about Rand Paul. I think that Rand Paul getting the Republican nomination would be a hell of a lot more controversial, um, especially after Trump, at the age of Trump. I think there's less likelihood of a Rand Paul Republican candidacy for the future. Having that said, anyway, just brings me to this point that it was a contentious primary because you have cliche Republicans all matching up against each other. Then you throw in Donald Trump, who was a wild card, and a contentious primary it was. As contentious as the 2020 Democratic primaries and even the 2016 Democratic primaries. Um, and as horrible of a president Donald Trump is, and he is objectionably a terrible president. He gets a failing grade from me, as far as I'm concerned. Um, of all the Republicans that were running, I mean, I still say someone like Ted Cruz would have been objectively worse than Donald Trump. Marco Rubio would have been objectively worse than Donald Trump. Jeb Bush would have been objectively worse than Donald Trump. Chris Christie would have been objectively worse than Donald Trump. Tommy Thompson, who might, in my opinion, might be the worst of the lot, considering what he did in Wisconsin. He may be the worst, but he was for sure objectively worse than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is bad enough, but you know, you got to consider how the Republican Party was prior to my alarm, my phone alarm is telling me it needs to do something. But anyway, they were objectively worse than Donald Trump. The, it's the Republican Party. What can you say? Um, and it was a contentious primary, and but Trump became the victor and he got the nomination. And I remember Ted Cruz, who I consider a never Trumper. He did vote for Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong, but he was making it clear that he wasn't going to endorse him, and he was telling the rest of his fellow Republicans, you got to make your own choice and everything. Because Ted Cruz got his butt hurt, little thin skinned moron that he is. He got his little feelings hurt because Donald Trump talked mean to him. I mean, he was thin skinned, but his donors basically told Ted Cruz, "You got to get in line, or you get towed the line, or you will not get any more campaign finance money, and the donors will abandon him." So Ted Cruz is trying to do his best to be, a firebrand like Donald Trump. It's really funny watching it. But there were never Trumpers in the media. Well, they were never Trumpers in the sense that they were critical never of Trump, but then they eventually turn around and supported Trump. I will say that while I do not consider Rush Limbaugh as officially a never Trumper, you can tell listening to his programs in the Republican primaries that he was a relatively pro Ted Cruz person first, more than anybody else. I do think maybe Trump might have been his second choice. Someone like Mark Levin was actually thought that Donald Trump was a closeted liberal or insufficiently conservative, and he was very critical. And he was an enthusiastic supporter of Ted Cruz. Well, Mark Levin did vote for Donald Trump, but he made it clear in the very beginning of the campaign that was not his first choice, and that the Republicans, in his view, chose the wrong man to be the nominee. But then he became a sycophant for Donald Trump afterwards. As I said, the Bush family and McCain, John McCain and Cindy McCain and what's her name, Megan McCain were anti-Trump. Um, I heard a rumor, and I can't substantiate this rumor, but I've heard that Dick Cheney voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I don't know how true it is. I'm throwing that out there. I'm throwing that out there, and as I said, I heard the rumor. And if I am wrong, I stand corrected. But that's what I heard. Glenn Beck, and I listen to a lot of right wing talk radio, as well as I listen to my progressive independent media people. But I listen to a lot of the right wing radio because I need to keep informed what the other sides have to say. It makes me a political basket case in a lot of ways, but that's just always has it been. So I mean, I kind of objectively listen to people from across the political spectrum, and even voices that I can't stand. And anyway, listening to Glenn Beck, what he was trying to have it both ways. He was saying that Donald Trump was insufficiently conservative, so he supported Ted Cruz, and he passionately supported Ted Cruz and put all his eggs in one basket to support Ted Cruz, and lost a lot of fans because of it. Not because he supported Ted Cruz, because he was so critical of Donald Trump in the primaries. And so after Trump won, Glenn Beck became a figure trying to he's an opportunist, by the way, but he went around acting like that he is the responsible, the mature conservative, the one that can bridge the gap between the right and the left to have meaningful dialogue or what have you. Glenn Beck is a snake oil salesman. Anyway, during the Trump campaign, well, let me get back to Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck voted for some third party candidate in 2016, but he entertained the idea of voting for Hillary Clinton. All you conservatives in the audience that loved Glenn Beck, you need to know Glenn Beck doesn't stand for anything really. He's a snake oil salesman, and he was thinking about voting for Hillary Clinton. Just thought I'll let you know. Anyway, during the Trump campaign in 2016, he did campaign as an unconventional Republican. Um, Campaigned to Hillary's left on the war. Campaigned to Hillary's left, believe it or not, on corporatism. Campaigned to Hillary's left on various issues that should have been embraced by a Democratic candidate for president. So you had Hillary Clinton, who was the epitome what it meant to be the establishment, versus Donald Trump, who was, because he was a New York real estate businessman, and never elected, he did kind of come across as an outsider. It was fake all along. But anyway, it was still enough to upset the GOP establishment. And while I did not pop champagne corks with Donald Trump winning, because I would never do that, um, I did kind of think he did throw a grenade into the Republican establishment. I thought that Donald Trump was, his divisive nature would fracture the Republican Party, and I was hoping that the Republican Party would be fractured because of it. I had high hopes that the Republican Party will fracture apart into two or three different political parties, and that maybe in a weird way that the country can move forward and become more progressive as a result. Even with Trump's victory, I figured that coalition would not be too long lasting. And I thought, there's a possibility that the Republican Party was split with Donald Trump. Well, unfortunately, I was wrong. I am occasionally wrong. It doesn't happen too often. But he became president, and instead of being the unconventional populist, he decided to do what most Republicans do: give tax cuts to the wealthy. Now, with regard to trade, he went and said no TPP. That's the Trans-Pacific Partnership. A stop clock gets the right time twice a day. Even a lot of lefties criticize Donald Trump's trade positions with China. I'm one of the few lefties that don't, because you know, his position on China is certainly way better than your cliche Republican president who goes out of their way to give China an edge over the United States. Um, you know, and the United States has become one huge Walmart because of a lot of Republican economic policies. Many Democrats are guilty too, by the way. He's not wrong on China. While he was correct to be opposed to NAFTA because he has a lot of establishment people working with him, the United States Mexico Canada agreement, USMCA, is pretty much the just NAFTA by a different name. Not impressed. He was correct to campaign against Obamacare in 2016. However, not for the reason that should be. The problem with Obamacare was it was a Heritage Foundation plan and it kept private insurance in the system, and that Obama should not be taking a plan Mitt Romney plan and implement it nationally. He should have taken the Bernie Sanders plan and implemented that nationally. And that meant single payer Medicare for all is the answer. What's the answer? Is the answer. Will always be the answer. Free market healthcare sucks. It doesn't work. Um, but there was a time when Donald Trump was liberal and he supported single payer healthcare. That was 20 years ago. On foreign policy, he campaigned against these wars and seemingly was campaigning against the military industrial complex. But the problem with Donald Trump doing that is then he put in John Bolton as his national security advisor. Bomb it from the Bush Cheney era. Gene Haskell as as the head of the CIA. When Rex Tillerson, I believe that was his name, stepped down as Secretary of State, he put a Bush Cheney era neocon and a fundamentalist Christian on top of that as his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. So, Donald Trump is kind of a chameleon on foreign policy. At the time, he's a Bush Cheney era neocon. But when he had phone conversations with Tucker Carlson, then to he decides to go and pull or call off an imminent attack on Iran, for example, or something like that. But appointing John Bolton is not draining the swamp; it's adding more swamp water to the swamp. I think that Donald Trump might be sincere about pulling troops out of Afghanistan, but he's got generals and he's got the neocons in the party that's enough to contain him. Um, he's been correct on North Korea. He's been abysmally wrong, and in fact, downright evil when it comes to Venezuela. What he's done with Venezuela is unforgivable, and his trying to moving out of the peace agreement with Iran and trying to start a war with Iran makes him pretty much no better than Bush Cheney era neocons when it comes to things like invading Iraq, which turned out to be a mistake. And Iran is a whole different kettle of fish from Iraq. Um, Iraq was a basket case economy and it was a basket case military due to the no-fly zone and everything. Iran is a little more sophisticated in how they do things next to Iraq when Saddam Hussein was their leader, and you're just asking for all kinds of problems by invading Iran. The problem with Iran is the problem you can solve the problems of Iran by dropping the sanctions, giving them back the frozen assets, which might have been justified in 1979. It outlived its usefulness. Give it back to them. There is a secular influence in Iran, and if the United States stop bullying Iran, I think that the people themselves will topple the government of Iran, and Iran will become a secularized Western state. And it will be basically, it'll basically go back to the days of the Shah without the negative aspects of the Shah, like the authoritarianism, which was really weird because under the Shah, Iran was officially authoritarian, but it looked like a democracy. It would look like a democracy, and but it would be what was good about the Shah without what was shitty about the Shah, and that is if the United States leave Iran alone, and that's what they need to do. Um, Now you got the 2020 campaign here. The fake populism is gone. And now is Antifa, radical left, Black Lives Matter, and it's just like he's starting to sound like your typical cultural war Republican that just makes me vomit. And it's made some former never Trumpers happy. Now, here are the three categories of the modern Republican Party in terms of Donald Trump. You got your MAGAs, you got your Donald Trump sycophants that were Donald Trump supporters from day one. They stretch across the political spectrum, ranging from because Donald Trump is capable of sounding moderate occasionally, and he's unconventional enough that and has a no filters aspect about him that it sounds like he does take on the right when he pretty much still acquiesced to their whims and demands and dreams. You got the really dark side of the MAGAs who are your alt right crowd, your Richard Spencers and everything. But then you got but you got people who were former Democrats or people who voted for Obama twice, people who might have been sympathetic to voting for Bernie Sanders if he was given a chance, and these people felt forgotten. And Donald Trump actually struck a chord with these people. And these people, and Michael Moore and Bernie Sanders mentioned this, these people are not evil for voting for Donald Trump. They were misguided for voting for Donald Trump, but they felt desperate enough that they gave this man an opportunity. Now, Michael Moore said in 2016 that he said that these people from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin will vote for Donald Trump when they have historically voted for Democratic candidates for president because they felt forgotten by the system. And that it would be Donald Trump was seen as a human Molotov cocktail thrown at the system, and that Donald Trump will be elected, and it will be considered the loudest fuck you in the United States history ever echoed and uttered. And it turned out to be true. And he said that it's going to feel good. It's going to feel good when it happens. then reality will kick in. And Michael Moore is right as usual. And that's your MAGAs. You got a coalition of people who are MAGAs. You got people who are never Trumpers. And again, the never Trumpers included, the people who it runs across ideological. You got people who supported Trump, who opposed Trump rather, because they thought he was too liberal. You got some that were that because he was too far right. Now I think that probably people don't talk about the never Trumpers who thought that he was too liberal. Is always the moderate Republicans that had said this is not the Republican Party I used to know, and these people they still think that it is the Republican Party of Dwight Eisenhower, and I don't know where they have been going, but the Republican of Dwight Eisenhower has been gone since the I would say since the Reagan era. Not so much Ronald Reagan, but because what I think it was Michael Brooks that said this, the late Michael Brooks. He said that the Republican Party, Jesse Helms actually created the modern Republican Party. Now I don't know where these people have been all this time, but that yeah, it's not been the Republican Party of Dwight Eisenhower for decades. One of the reasons I don't vote Republican is I think of Jesse Helms and people like Jesse Helms. You got and those never Trumpers, they're still around. The John Kasichs are still around. The Christine Todd Whitmans, the Colin Powells, and remember Colin Powell's a war criminal. He might not hate gays, and he might be moderately liberal on economic and social issues and everything. Wonderful, but he played a role in the murder of 500,000 Iraqi people. Always remember that. Christine Todd Women. I'm glad she doesn't hate gay people, and I'm glad she's moderate on social issues and everything. But when it comes to tax policies and economics, she is a garden variety Republican. Good enough reason not to support her or be sympathetic toward her. John Kasich. I mean, I like John Kasich as far as his demeanor is concerned. He seems like a nice guy. But he's a union buster, and he's pretty much a standard right winger across the board. He's just not an asshole as far as his demeanor is concerned. But but the problem with people like John Kasich, Colin Powell, and people like that craps on Donald Trump is that they like some of the economic stuff he does. However, they just don't like his mean tweets. So they're being as silly as Alyssa Milano on the left, as far as I'm concerned, for opposite reasons. But I would have to say that the worst people you can imagine from all across the spectrum, whether from the left to the right, people who are Bernie Sanders supporters, who are Bernie busters, or people who are Bernie Sanders supporters that are going to support Joe Biden's the lesser evil, people who are going to be in the Green Party. You got or whether it's your corporate Democrats that hate the Bernie Sanders people and hate the Republicans, and they're just comfortable being corporate Democrats, or we're talking about your garden variety Republicans from all specters of the ideological spectrum. Probably the worst people around are the conditional Trumpers. These are people who were never Trumpers in 2016. That all of a sudden they had an epiphany and they became pro Donald Trump. And these people include people like Glenn Beck, and Mark Levin, and I'm going to include Dave Rubin because Dave Rubin was becoming conservative in 2016, but he voted for Gary Johnson in the Libertarian Party. And if he would have just stuck as a libertarian, I would not be making fun of him and the way my alarm again. Sorry about that. Um, um, what was I saying? But if he would have just remained libertarian, I could have forgave Dave Rubin. But he decided that he was going to go team up with Mark Levin and Glenn Beck of Blaze TV. That's unforgivable. Dave Rubin leaving the Young Turks to work with Glenn Beck and Mark Levin. I would have been even willing to give Dave Rubin a free pass if he worked with Tucker Carlson. Not because I like Tucker Carlson, but Tucker Carlson is at least capable of giving the right time twice a day. That can never be said about Glenn Beck, can never be said about Mark Levin, can never be said about Rush Limbaugh, Ben Shapiro, or any other movement conservative. And a lot of these conditional Trumpers still don't like Trump, the man. They don't like the way he tweets. They don't like his crude style. They don't like his demeanor, but they love his policies. And for somebody, a leftist like myself, I could give a shit about Donald Trump's demeanor. In fact, if anything, I would say that his policies suck. But as far as his demeanor is concerned, indifferent and sometimes mildly entertaining, at the expense of the United States, of course. But these conditional Trumpers, I know what it is that they love about Donald Trump. It's not Donald Trump themselves. They know that Mike Pence has been doing most of the governing, and so all the right wing, the fake populism that Donald Trump provides was a facade. He is lazy, so he allows Mike Pence to do his work and his bidding, and by doing so, he's able to go around like a big shot talking about how awesome he is, while that mousy little Mike Pence, he the I's and slash the T's and move the country further and further and further and further to the right. So, you know, as far as the conventionality of Donald Trump, nothing's changed except for maybe his style. Sometimes it's entertaining, sometimes it's disturbing, but it's mostly destructive. And anyway, I just feel like I had to get this out of my chest. Anyway, and I'm sorry how long-winded I am, but I'll try to do better. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you were triggered, well, tough, but comment anyway. Feel free to share the content on this channel. Please do so. And if you're passionate about something and you want to build an online platform, or if you already have one, please do so and utilize it, because we're all the muckrakers of our time. Most importantly than anything else in this channel, please hit that subscribe button. Help this channel grow and make it grow. I am American social democracy. And until next time, Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024. I have to go to work in a minute, but I have to give somebody a phone call because somebody is contacting me right now. So I wish you all a great day. I got to read something here before I sign off.